Welcome to the DK Custom Products channel. My name's Kevin. Dwayne's behind the camera today. And what we're going to do is change the transmission gear oil on a 2019 Tri-Glide. It's pretty similar to the same as on a two-wheeler, and as we're doing it, we'll point out the couple little differences. But the main reason I'm doing it is because I want to test this new Harley gear oil. I've heard nothing but glowing reports about it. I've always run Redline and really like it. I'm not unhappy with it, but I want to see why everybody is raving about this. So I'm getting ready to go on a trip out to Arizona, and we're going to see how this does on that trip. The manual calls to change the transmission gear oil at the first 1,000 miles and then every 20,000 miles after that. I usually go about 10, maybe 15,000 miles, so every second or third oil change. And I think I only have like 6,000 or 7,000 miles on the Redline that's in there right now. But we're going to go ahead and put this in there, show you where the drain plug is, because it gets confused a lot of times with the drain plug for the engine oil. It's always a good idea to warm up the transmission first before you drain the oil. That way you'll get more of the oil out, because it is pretty thick stuff, sticky stuff, and so you want to get it warmed up. So I'm gonna go out for a little ride, get it warmed up, and then pull it in here and get to work on changing it. So we've warmed the bike up, so the transmission gear oil should drain a lot easier. This is a trike, and the trike dipstick is made to work when the trike is sitting flat. The dipstick on the two-wheel bikes is made so that you can do all of this on the Jiffy stand. Do not set it up straight. The drain is on that side, which on a two-wheel bike is the low side, and the fill is on this side, the high side on a two-wheel bike. Again, with the trike, everything's level, so we're just going to do it like this, but the procedure is exactly the same on a two-wheel bike. So you always want to check the dipstick on the trike with it level, and on the two-wheel bikes with it on the Jiffy stand. That's at least on the M8. Some of the earlier twin cams and Evos, some of them are one way, some of them are another way. So first thing we want to do is we want to crack the, we'll go ahead and just almost remove this completely. That's so when we do the drain plug, it'll exit smoothly because we have an inflow. So we're going to go ahead and set this out. And actually, before we do anything, I've not checked my transmission oil. You see that's Redline, that red stuff. So the way that you check the fluid levels, you screw the cap in till the O-ring is barely touching the case. You don't want to tighten it down, just till it the O-ring starts to touch, which I just did. We're going to pull it out, and we're going to see together what level it is at. And it is right at the full mark. That tells you that I am not migrating any fluid from my transmission to my primary. And we'll put a video up in the corner here of the primary vent that Harley started putting on all bikes in late 2019. But was not on this bike, and we put it on this bike. So the primary vent is working good. We have this just sitting there loose, so now when we pull the drain plug, the fluid will come out easily. When we go to pull the drain plug, it's important that we pull the plug for the transmission and not the engine. That's probably the most common mistake that new Harley owners make is, and it's understandable because the transmission drain plug and the engine drain plug are only like a couple inches away from each other. It's hard to know which is which. So let's just take a quick look-see in the manual where you can see where the engine drain plug is, where the transmission drain plug is, and then we're going to actually look under this bike, and it's a little cluttered down there because the bracketry for the mid-step, but we'll still be able to see it all. That right there is the drain plug for the transmission. And then if we move forward, that is the drain plug for the engine. Engine drain plug pointed toward the front of the bike. Transmission drain plug pointed toward the ground underneath the bike. We're going to go ahead and pull this plug. So you want to get as much of the fluid out of there as you can, especially when going from one type oil to another, which we're going from Redline to experimenting with this Harley gear oil. And so you want to just get every bit that you can out of there, which is why we warmed it up, because that helps it drain out. So we've pulled the drain plug, and you can see that there's a magnet on the end to attract any metal, and I don't really like what I'm seeing here. There's a couple of good size chips. Usually you just see a little bit of fuzzy stuff, but I mean, those are some good size chips. So either myself or someone else was banging through the gears and got a little bit of metal on there, but it's not bad. It's not something I like to see like that and don't normally see, but it's not overflowing with big chunks or chips. So do that, clean all that metal off, and then you can use, and then the manual says to replace the O-ring with every change. I actually look at the ring and see if it's in good condition or not. And if it's in good condition, I just reuse it. If it's in bad condition, if there's any tears or deformities to it, then I'll put a new O-ring on there. But I don't need to do that because this one is in good condition. And then what I do, people use different, don't use thread locker on this, but I do use Teflon tape. There's no need to use Teflon tape. There's no need to use any kind of a sealant on here because the O-ring is going to seal it and it's not going to leak. But I'm going to go ahead and just put a little bit of Teflon tape on there and put the plug back in. Doesn't need a lot, just doesn't need any, but I don't put a lot on there, just a little. It's certainly not going to hurt anything. So let's take a look at the oil that we drained out. Looks like Pepto-Bismol, but this is Redline gear oil, and I don't see anything floating or any, there's no big amount, there's no water to speak of. That's one of the things about Redline, is just opaque like that. It's not clear like regular gear oil. So that's what we drained out. That's about 28 ounces. We're going to put 28 ounces of this in there and then check the dipstick and make sure. So let's put the plug back in. So we're going to put the drain plug back in right here. And we're going to tighten this down to, the book says 14 to 21 foot-pounds. And I think we have the torque wrench set at, did you set it at 15, Wayne?
Yeah, 15.
We set the torque wrench at 15. And this stuff is supposed to be really good stuff. We're going to find out if it's as good, better, or not as good as the Redline. Let's just go to 14 ounces twice. 13, okay. You want a long funnel so that you can get in there. And here we go. So there's the first 14 ounces. Now, just because the book says 28 ounces doesn't mean, I'm not one of those people who goes, oh, the book says 3.5 quarts of oil is needed, in the engine. I'll put in 2.5, 3, check the dipstick, and keep adding until it shows up correctly on the dipstick. What I have found with the transmission is that it's better. When you put in 28 ounces, it's usually going to be dead on. It's not like the engine where there's cracks and crevices that you might not be able to drain, get it all out of there. Let's do an initial check. You just screw this down until that O-ring on the dipstick barely touches the case, which it just did. There we go, right at the top of the X. The important takeaways: warm it up so it drains easy. Make sure you drain the transmission and not the engine oil. And I have for decades, literally decades, have been using Redline. I've tried a bunch of other ones. We'll put a link to our oil video up in the corner here. And I've never found anything better than Redline. But so many people, including a lot of Redline users, have been talking good about the Harley gear oil. So that's it. That's how you change your transmission fluid, gear oil. What you want to do is go for a ride. We're going to go for a ride. Then you want to check for leaks just in case we did anything wrong, and then check the level again. You all ride safe out there.